Move on to number 4, which is gym-based training for endurance athletes. Now in the gym or at home, if you want to do your gym training at home, you can get performance improvements both directly and indirectly. Okay, and what I mean by that is that Cameron Brown over here can do some stuff in the gym that will directly make him go faster or produce more power on the bike, and that will obviously improve his performance. Then we can do stuff indirectly over here that's not going to improve our performance directly, but having a stronger core, surely that's going to do something. Being able to hold our aerodynamic position on the bike. So being able to, that's the seat up there, these are handlebars. If you can get down into that aerodynamic position and hold it because your core is this strong, that's going to indirectly improve your performance. Being able to hold better position swimming, it's going to indirectly improve your performance. And just being a stronger, more robust athlete, so you don't get injured, so then you can train some more, that's going to indirectly improve our performance as well. So we can improve our performance directly and indirectly. So with that in mind, let's think about some direct performance improvements. Now, whenever endurance athletes think of strength training, this is what they're worried about. I don't want to do strength training because I'm going to get massive. Okay? They're worried about increasing their body weight. There's no need to worry about this, and I'll show you a couple of results from some studies that show that this doesn't happen. If you do even a sniff of endurance training, this is never going to happen. And you're only ever going to be able to put on moderate amounts of muscle if you're doing that high volume aerobic training as well. This here is more what's going to happen, if anything, to endurance athletes, and that end of the scale as well, that's negative on performance as well, okay? This here is Michael Rasmussen, okay, he's a Tour de France cyclist. This was during the Tour de France. Hard to believe that it actually was. Looks more like the liberation of a prisoner of war camp in the Second World War. But he was actually done a couple of days after this for blood doping anyway. Okay? So there's no way that a human can function in a state like that naturally. Okay? So both ends of the spectrum are negative anyway. The other thing athletes often worry about is that decrease in aerobic capacity. So they're worried that the strength training is going to negatively affect their cardiovascular fitness. Okay, so let's have a think about those and address them. So there's a couple of studies out there looking at maximal strength training improving economy in competitive cyclists. So what these guys did is they did 8 weeks of supplementary gym training. So the cyclists did their on the bike training, and then they did on the bike training and gym training on top of it, okay? And all they did were 4 sets of 4 times 4 repetition max in a Smith machine. So what they did is they did 4 squats at a weight that they could only lift 4 times, okay? So it's quite heavy weight. They did 3 times a week, and if a 5th repetition could be completed, they added 2.5 kgs to it, okay? So that they couldn't do it. And the sessions only took 20 minutes. So they're doing 60 minutes extra training a week. Is that right? Yeah, 3 days per week. So very minimal, but quite heavy. And if you were to go to a personal trainer and ask for a gym training program for triathlon, they'd probably put you on 15 to 30 repetitions to target your endurance. Okay? But this here is doing 4 reps of heavy weight. And what we see is this is the results from it. The intervention is the gym training, and the control is just the group that just did their normal training. So 1 RM, this is how much weight they could lift once. You can see that improved a lot in the gym training. Fancy that. Rate of force development, so that's how fast they could generate force, also increased. But the ones we're really interested in is cycling efficiency and work efficiency here, or cycling economy, sorry, and work efficiency. And maximal time at mean aerobic power. So we can see that not only did their force variables increase, but their ability to cycle also improved. mostly their efficiency, okay? And the reason that their efficiency improves, or their economy, is that they're able to recruit more muscle fibers because there's more nerves innervating those muscles now, okay? There's more muscles doing the work, so each muscle fiber doesn't have to work as hard. And remember we talked about weight, so this is weight and VO2 max, or aerobic capacity up the top here. There was no difference in any of these measures. So they didn't become heavier, okay? They didn't bulk up, or they didn't lose any of their endurance performance either. So their gym training improved their on-the-bike performance, but it didn't have any negative effects in terms of weight or decrease in aerobic performance. This is another study that looked at 45-minute time trial performance using weight training and non-weight training. So over here, strength and endurance training. You see this group here improve their power output, so this is how hard they will be able to push, how fast they can go. They improve their time trial performance over 45 minutes compared to a group that just did endurance training. Okay, so again, doing this gym work directly improves their performance on the bike. And again with runners, this is a sort of the same similar study to the cyclists, but we see the performance gains in runners as well. Okay, so it's really cool in that they're doing this simple basic gym training but getting massive improvements in performance with no change in weight or aerobic capacity, which everyone gets worried about. So this does have some relevance to what we're talking about. Most of the people in this room have an amazing aerobic engine. Okay, they go for ages, they've got horsepower to boot. But their body, on the other hand, is the thing that's going to break down and limit them. Okay, so this is where we talk about indirect performances through strength training. So we want to address the structural integrity of the body so it's able to withstand a big engine. Okay. So we're going to talk briefly about anterior and lateral pelvic tilt. So if you think these are your hips or your pelvis, this is a side-on view. This is looking at it at the front. Heaps and heaps of muscles attached to the front, the back, top and the bottom of the pelvis. It's sort of our platform that we leave everything off. So the big ones that attach at the front are our hip flexors, and at the back our hamstrings. Now I've probably put a good bet on that most people in this room feel like they've got tight hamstrings, and some will struggle to touch their toes. Will I be right? Now, I'm going to go out there and say that most of you don't have tight hamstrings. It's almost the complete opposite. You've got tight hip flexors, tight at the front. So what happens is at the front, it gets tight and it rotates our pelvis forward. And this here tilts our bum out, hips up, and it pulls on our hamstrings and makes them feel tight. We'll go, ooh, we've got tight hamstrings, stretch them out. And they just get more and more stretched, pelvis gets more and more tilted anteriorly, which is to the front. Okay, anterior is just to the front. So the muscles that are the culprits are the rectus femoris and then the iliacus and psoas major, which are our hip flexors. Then they do this movement here. So whenever we're riding our bike in this position or in this position, if we're time trialing, these get really, really tight. If we're sitting at our desk during the day typing, they get really, really tight. If we're driving our car, always in this flex position, getting really, really tight. And then what we do is we jump off the bike and we expect them to extend out when we're running, and we start to get sore lower backs because these muscles here attach directly up into the lower back, and that arch gets more and more. Okay, and we start to lose a lot of power. We can't stride, so we start to get into this wee plod as well. So tight hip flexors, hamstrings getting pulled on them. With a little bit of stretching through the front and core training so that we strengthen up the core, and that'll pull the front of the pelvis up. We can sort of return into a normal position. most people in this room will have some degree of anterior pelvic tilt, and it will be affecting their performance either directly or indirectly. So you can't really do too much stretching through the front of your legs, and unless you've got a known imbalance in your hamstring, I tend to say leave them alone unless there is something that's not happening there. Okay? Does that make sense to people? Now we're going to talk about lateral pelvic tilt. This is side to side. Okay, that's what lateral means. And you see all of these three runners here. As their sort of hips are collapsing every time they land on their legs. Their hips are collapsing, and you can see it from a knee drop very clearly. Hips are collapsing again. And this is all to do with the glute med. You guys probably heard of glute med. Physio always says, go and work on your glute med. Okay, and this is what they're talking about. Is when your supporting foot is on the ground, and if your glutes aren't firing, your pelvis is going to collapse inwards. Okay, so we need this muscle to fire to pull our pelvis back into neutral alignment, as we can see here. So that there is not firing. And these are the two muscles that we're talking about, and they control what our pelvis does. So you can see in this example, the athlete's running, takes her foot off the ground, her glute med on this side is not firing, and her pelvis collapses over. Okay, it's hugely inefficient when you're running, you're just losing power. Okay, because you're not transferring your power down to the ground and out. Here's another example, and what you notice of this athlete is that big imbalance on that side. So this glute is not firing, but over on this side is working perfectly fine because this one here is firing. Okay, so this athlete just needs to work on one side. And some key exercises to work on these medial glutes is using your band. Okay, putting your band around your feet, up on your toes, and just taking small side steps. So we're activating our glutes as we're moving. Again, like I say, these will all be online, so you guys can go back and get them. The clam, just the classic one that any physio will get you to isolate your medial glute. The bridge, everyone loves those. Working on those medial glutes again, as well as some of the other surrounding core muscles. Some more bridging. This is my favourite, the fire hydrant. So lifting that leg out, again, really targeting on isolating the medial glute.